Hi everybody, thanks for joining me. So in today's video we're going to talk about how to apply the slope and y-intercept formula. So let's dive in. Well, we've talked about slope. What a slope is, it's the steepness of a linear graph. All right, it's rise over run. But what's the y-intercept? This concept is new, but it's definitely not difficult. So let's look at it. This is the point on a linear graph where the line will cross the y-axis. It's the number that you add to x when x is 0, and the point 0, y will give you the y-intercept. So those are just a few points to keep in mind. Here we have a graph. All right, we want to know what the y-intercept is. It's honestly so easy. So we have to know, first of all, which of our axes is the y-axis. It is always the axis that runs north and south or up and down. All right, this is our y-axis right here. So we just find the point where our linear graph crosses that axis, and on this particular graph it is right there. All right, so as a point, this is 0 and 1. All right, as a point, your y-intercept will always be paired with an x of 0 because it's not moving to the left or right. All right, so in this particular graph, our y-intercept is 1. That's not really hard. So all you got to do in order to find the y-intercept of any line that's already been graphed is look for where it crosses that y-axis. All right, moving on. Well, how about the formula? What is the formula and how do we use it? All right. So since we've been talking about functions throughout this whole unit, we're talking about linear functions, and those are functions that form lines. So this formula is a function. It's a very much more specific function than we've worked with before. So this formula includes both the slope and the y-intercept of any given graph. So this is the formula right here. Y equals mx plus b. M is a number being multiplied by x, and b is a number being added to x. Those variables, which are kind of new to us, the variables themselves, m and b, stand for concepts we talked about. So m is the slope. All right, it is always whatever the number is being multiplied to x, and b is the y-intercept. It's always being added or subtracted from x. Just to practice, if you are given a formula in y-intercept form, if you're given a function in y-intercept form and you're asked to find the slope in the y-intercept, it should be very simple. It really should just be the two numbers in your formula. Like y and x are still your input and output here. Whenever we're applying the formula and doing math work with it, you're usually going to just be picking out an x on your own and then finding whatever y results in that. So in these formulas, what are our slope and our y-intercept? So we know that m is the slope, and it's always the number being multiplied by x. So in this particular formula, which number is being multiplied by x? 3. So our slope, or our m, for this formula, is 3. That's our slope. Okay, 3 or 3 over 1. The y-intercept is always the one being added or subtracted from x. So in this case, that's a 5. So our b, or our y-intercept, is 5. Easy stuff, right? All right, over here, in this formula, y equals 1/4 x plus -2. Slope, which number is being multiplied by x? 1/4. So our slope, or m, is 1/4. And our y-intercept is the number being added or subtracted. And in that case, it's -2. So our y-intercept here is -2. All right, so that's how you would find the slope and y-intercept of a particular formula, just by looking at it. All right. Well, how do you write a formula based on a graph? What if you were given a graph, such as the one you see here, and you're told, write a formula based on this? All right. So we should keep in mind, we should always remember what the formula is. Y equals mx plus b. That is our formula. So the first thing is to find the slope and use any 2 points on the graph. So I'm going to use this point, 1, 1, and this point, 2, 3. Remember that slope is rise over run. Remember that rise is how much you go up or down. Run is how much you go left or right. So let's count our rise. We go up 1, 2 spaces. So our rise is 2. And we run 1 space. So we get 2 over 1, which simplifies to 2. So that is our slope, 2. All right, find the y-intercept. All you got to do to find the y-intercept is look at your graph and find the point where your graph crosses the y-axis. So we follow our graph until it crosses the y-axis right here, which is -1. So what you do is you take your formula, y equals mx plus b, and you replace the letters m and b with the numbers. Well, which number? Okay, remember that slope is always m. Slope is always m. All right, so y stays put, equal sign stays put, but now instead of m, we're going to write a 2 because our slope is 2. X also stays put, plus sign stays put. All right, our y-intercept b is going to be -1, and I'm only using parentheses here to separate my plus sign from my negative sign. So we get y equals 2x plus -1, or y equals 2x minus 1 is also the same thing. All right, so that's how you would write a formula from looking at a graph. Find the slope, find the y-intercept, plug your numbers in where they go. All right, and using this formula, we could find any other point on this graph simply by picking any x we want to and solving for y. So with this formula, we could plug in 1,000,000 for x, all right, and solve it and find that our answer would be 1,999,999. All right, just in case you needed to know that. All right, so let's clear the ink, and we're going to move on. All right, so here's just some more practice with that. We're going to write a formula for this line based on the y-intercept formula. So y-intercept formula is y equals mx plus b. And we just need to find our slope, which is our m, and our y-intercept, which is our b, and plug those numbers in where they go. So first I'm going to work on my slope. All right, remember that your slope is rise over run. So I'm going to pick any 2 points. So I'm going to pick this point and this point. I'm going to count my rise. So in this particular case, I move up 1 space. I'm going to count my run. So 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So my slope is 1/4. So in my formula, I will replace m with 1/4. All right, now I'm going to look for my y-intercept, which if I just follow my graph, it's where we cross, and that is right here. So it is 2. All right, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day.